I've still got Forever on my brain, you all. And with the news dropping last month that we've been renewed for a season 2, your girl is thrilled. Ecstatic, even, at the thought of seeing Keisha and Justin and the gang back on my screen soon. And with that delight is also a softer joy at the thought and hope that the show would continue what it had set out to do in the first season as it pertains to the parents. To pass on the very crucial message that children aren't extensions of their parents. They are full blooded people with their own wants, desires, dreams, goals, needs, and lives. And that the most you can do as a parent is to look out for them, advise them, and be present for them. Because whether you're restricting them by feeding them your own dreams for them, i.e., dawn, or you're letting your exuberance about what is happening cloud your judgment and keep you from actually paying attention to your child, i.e., Shelley, or you're swept away in the cheer and happiness of the moment that you can't see and are thus shocked and surprised at your child's misery, i.e., Eric. Forever wants us to understand that children, especially teenagers, see so much more than what we think they can. And there's a weight of responsibility in realizing that as a parent or a relative or even an older sibling. Now, the reason why I thought it was necessary to make the video was because one, a lot of people were comparing the parents in the show, trying to imply that one set was better than the other, which, as I'm sure you've already guessed from my intro, I am of the belief that they both had flaws with regards how they handled the matter with their children. And secondly, because of the fact that the show actually had the parents grow, had them listen and reconsider and actually follow through on what their kids wanted. And I don't know about you, but when I think of my very Nigerian mother and how she used to be so fixated on me hitting certain goals and turning out a certain way back when I was a teenager, I feel very happy for the kids who will be raised on Netflix's Forever, whose parents hopefully watched it too. And rather than focus on the sex scenes alone, because I know if my mother watched that show, that's the only thing she would fixate on, would instead look at the broader themes that the story's trying to say. That the first point of community that teenagers should ideally have is their parents. People who would look out for them and their interests and aim to support them in what they want to do. You know, like Shelley does with Keisha and Don and Eric do with helping Justin find the right help for his ADHD, which entails getting him a tutor to help him manage his executive dysfunction. That is a big deal, especially within the Black community. That we are having these conversations about Black kids who are neurodivergent and the help they need to navigate that. It is incredible. And I think that a just as important point of discussion should also be about how much burden teenagers, particularly Black teenagers, have to take on as they navigate the high expectations placed on them by their parents by virtue of a society that demands more from them just because of who they are. And the fact that you can have a parent who does well in one aspect, i.e., Dawn is the one who did push for and get Justin the help he needed as he worked with his ADHD, which it turns into a superpower via his college admission essay. And on the other hand, can just about break their children with the unrealistic expectations that they've set on them as a result of their high demands for what they perceive and erroneously believe to be their goal. A goal that is often fostered on the kids by parents who keep pushing their desires onto them. For example, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer. As I grew into my teenage years, I kept parroting the line. Keyword here being parrot, because the reason why I kept saying it was because that was what my parents and my relatives said. They said because I was intelligent, I loved to debate, I could talk and talk endlessly, I loved reading. It all meant that I would make the perfect lawyer. And my ass, who had no idea what being a lawyer would entail, nodded along. It became the only thing I parroted back at anyone who asked. I am going to be a lawyer. It influenced the subjects I expressed interest in, the ones I dropped because they didn't serve my goal of eventually becoming a lawyer, the effort I put in. Until one day, just before I took my final exams and I was moments away from filling my application forms, the thought hit me. Noria, do you actually want to be a lawyer? Or are you just saying that because that's all your mom has drummed into your ear since you were a child? If you fail at it and flunk out, wouldn't that mean that you would spend the entire time blaming her instead of taking ownership for yourself and your choices? Yes, people, I was a very precocious 17-year-old. But the question did unlock something in me, and would you look at that? I was able to convince my parents that I absolutely do not want to be a lawyer. And so, watching Forever hurt. Seeing Dawn push and be clouded by her vision of Justin attending Northwestern, walking the halls of her alma mater, being set in her words to be taken seriously by their society, it immediately transported me back into my 17-year-old body and the absolute terror I felt as I walked up to my mom to tell her that all the dreams and hopes she had of me becoming a lawyer, I'm sorry, but I would have to disappoint her. As I watched the show, all I could think of was several hundreds, maybe even thousands or tens of thousands of teenagers who could relate to what Justin was feeling. The burden of realizing that you're about to disappoint your parents irrevocably. That fear that keeps you going and lying to yourself for so long that who knows, maybe you would like being in that university. Maybe you would eventually enjoy getting that degree. Maybe you will stop feeling the gaping hole that is the fear of disappointing your parents if you just went ahead with it. Forever as a show aims to tell us that teenagers shouldn't have to feel that pit in their stomachs. They shouldn't have to deal with that, with the fear of disappointing their parents, because it is the responsibility of a parent to love their kid enough to want them to be happy, to do what it is that they are good at. Because here's the thing, I'm not about to say that I don't understand or get where Dawn is coming from. She is right. Justin is a young black man whose prospects will be limited or broadened depending on the choice he makes with regards to the school he goes to and the degree he earns, etc. And Justin realizes this. The only thing is that is not what is going to make him happy. He wants to work on beats and make music and put it out there, and that is something I really appreciate about Forever. The show doesn't make us automatically assume that Justin would make it as a beat maker. He could just as easily fail at it. What Forever wants us, and by extension any parent watching, to take away is that it doesn't matter. What matters is giving teenagers the chance and opportunity to try, to see what they are capable of and what they can accomplish. Maybe they end up accomplishing way more than we had expected, in which case that would be awesome. Or maybe they end up falling flat on their faces and things don't pan out the way they had expected. But that's still a life lesson. And they at least got the chance to try. With Shelley, on the other hand, we see a mother who's fully in support of her daughter's goals. Which makes a ton of sense when you consider that her and Keisha's goals are very much aligned after all. Keisha wants to be a trackster, Shelley wants her daughter to be a trackster, and so along with the rest of Keisha's community, put in the work to make that a reality. That is beautiful. Sometimes what a parent wants can perfectly align with what their child wants. However, when Shelley unwittingly burdens Keisha as it pertains to Keisha's relationship with her ex-Christian, now, I would always say in defense of Shelley that she didn't know. Keisha, burdened by the humiliation of Christian not protecting a private moment between them, which then got out into the wild, never did tell her mother. So Shelley cannot be blamed for not knowing. What I do get stuck on, however, is the fact that she never notices, and that is something that Forever highlights. Like, sure, we as the audience get the bird's eye view and are able to see how these characters react and interact, but we also see that Keisha doesn't quite fully hide it either. At least not immediately. When Shelley shows up with Christian in tow to the baseball pitch where she introduces him to Justin and Dawn, Dawn could immediately clock that her son was very uncomfortable. Shelley, though, could not spot that her daughter was equally as uncomfortable. I think with Shelley, the show tries to show us that parents can sometimes let their excitement and exuberance over a situation lead to them not noticing the non-verbal cues and signs that their children are giving off. Which then leads to, at least in the case of Keisha maintaining the pretense so her mother can stay obliviously happy. Like I said earlier, this doesn't make Shelley a bad mother. It's just the show pointing out how sometimes it is the responsibility of a parent to notice these changes about their kids. And they often don't because they are blinded by everything seemingly being good. Shelley is just beyond thrilled that Keisha is on track to get into Howard. She's not pregnant. She seemingly has a steady boyfriend in Christian. Her focus is on how things are aligning in a way that makes her happy and gives her peace. And she's unaware that Keisha is carrying that hope, desperate not to disappoint her mother, even though she already feels like she has. And that is placing such a huge burden on her. And Eric is also guilty of this because, like Shelley, his joy at seeing something accomplished has him blinded to how his son is reacting. A situation that would otherwise not have occurred. Because the show makes it clear that whilst Dawn and Eric both love their children a lot, Dawn, who is more driven and is way more strict, tends to be a bit more single-minded, laser-focused in her approach. And so she's unable to really see what Justin wants at times. Eric was often portrayed as being a bit different in that regard. He's more laid back, gives Justin more room, and is also the one who is able to spot and track Justin's reactions and adjust accordingly to balance out Dawn's more stricter style of parenting. And yet when Justin gets into Northwestern, Eric gets carried away by the joy of the moment, telling Justin that Justin's the first in his side of the family to go to college. And so that joy at having that dream realized and fulfilled meant that Eric was blinded to Justin's unhappiness at getting into Northwestern. That feeling of being desirous of seeing his father's dream realized is what adds even more pressure to Justin and had him seriously considering going into the university so he could keep his father as happy as he was in that moment. Of course, we know from the show that Justin does eventually have that very difficult conversation, and I was so incredibly proud of him in that scene. And as I watched it, all I could think and do was applaud forever for going there, for encouraging families having these very important conversations. Are children following through on their own dreams, or are they merely living to satisfy the dreams and hopes of their parents? And with the way in which both Dawn and Eric and Shelley each handle their children coming forward to tell them the truth of things and what they actually want and how they handled it with grace and care, eventually, it makes me really, really happy. But that's just me and my thoughts, of course. As always, I would love to hear yours. Please drop them in the comments. Like this video if you haven't watched it yet. Share it if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. And until tomorrow's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.